folks, I wanted to show you a video today on making an elk ivory pendant. The ivory comes from elk, and it's a way to honor the elk, especially if it's your first elk that you've killed. But it may not be for all folks, but lots of people out there have them and want them made. So anyway, it might be something that you'd be interested in making. So I want to show you this. It's a simple pendant. It's got a all sterling silver setting with a sterling silver bale. Just a simple little pendant on one ivory. So stay tuned. We'll check it out. Okay, here we go. This is a whole elk ivory pendant. I cut the top off of it to make it a mountable piece. The top's the best finish and the best color. It's got the shiny part of the tooth. But I wanted a flat bottom to be able to set it properly, and I cut it with a lapidary saw, water cooled, and just sliced the bottom off of it. Anyway, I take a 1/8 inch serrated fine bezel strip. I carefully form it around the ivy. I have a little bezel tool that it's actually an old leather bezel tool, and I just work that bezel around that ivory, and where the bezel strip meets, I take my knife and I just cut a little slit there, so I know to cut it off right there, and then that'll be soldered together with hard silver solder. I just cut that bezel strip on my mark, and I'm going to take it over here, and I got my mini torch. You don't take much heat on these bezels. And I'm using 70% silver solder on this bezel. I just flux it up, heat it, and touch it with the solder until it melts right on there. Then I got the bezel here, and I'm going to check the fit on the ivory and kind of form it, make sure everything's going to work right. I take my bezel tool again and kind of work it in close to the ivory, and this way we know that it's going to slip in there and be mountable properly. Then I take the bezel strip and I put it on 22 gauge sterling silver sheet, and I just kind of fin it to where that is, and I just trim off a kind of a chunk of this 22 gauge sterling, and I sand both sides of it, and also sand the bottom of the bezel to make sure it's flat. And looks like that's going to fit all right. It'll trim off later. I flux it up with flux and a 65% silver on this one, and I just heat around the bezel and the backing, and I just touch to the inside of the bezel, and the solder flows around the bezel, and it kind of follows the heat around that bezel, so it'll close it up. You don't want any gaps on the bezel, so you look it over real good, cool it off, and we're ready to trim that backing piece up close to the bezel. And if you were going to put a rope on this, you would put the rope around it and then trim it off. But this one's not going to have a rope. It's just going to be a elk tooth mounted and hung as a pendant. I polished the back side with a silicone wheel to make sure there's no sharp edges where my saw didn't get up against, and just kind of form it close to the bezel. And then I sand the back again on it, make sure it's nice and smooth. And I take a piece of 18 gauge sterling round wire. I'm going to form a loop for the bale to hook onto. So I'm going to take this 18 gauge loop, and I'm going to solder it right here at the top on the back side of the backing. And same principle, flux it, heat it up, and let the solder flow and join them together. Be careful not to get too much heat on your bezel. That's the thin stuff. Anyway, we got that loop on there. And then I'm soldering the bale on there. I slit the bale and I put it through that loop, and I've got the slit facing upwards, and I just solder the slit back together. So now it's permanently hooked to the loop on the elk pendant. Now I'm going to polish the whole thing up with some silicone wheels, and I usually start out with the blue or pink, and then I go to tan, then I go to green. Green's a high polish. Right now I've got a graphite, well, I won't say it's graphite, but it's a sanding pen, gray, and I sand the inside of the bezel to where it's rough, and I've got all the solder smooth inside it. Then I take these silicone wheels and I go around the bezel and make sure it's all shined up real nice. And these do a good job polishing. You don't have to worry too much about getting on a big wheel and it chunking your bezel across the room and damaging it. So these are a nice thing to have, and it helps to have an adjustable rotary tool to where you can change the speed up and down. I set it on a Delrin pad, and I kind of open up the bezel a little bit with my tool, just kind of widen it out some so I can get a little space to put this elk tooth down in there. And I'm going to push it down in there, and I'll take my burnisher and I'll go around the sides of the bezel and just burnish it down tight against the elk ivory. I've got a lot of tools that I burnish the bezels with. I've got a little brass pin that goes in my pulse graver that will hammer it in, and then I've got the little half wheel that a lot of people use. But this little old leather burnisher works pretty good. There you go. Got a nice pendant ready for putting on a chain.